Is a 2U rack mount UPS like the Eaton Tripp Lite Smart 2200 VA the right safety net for your office server, your home lab, or just a few critical peripherals? And does it justify the sticker price for someone who isn't running a data center? If you've ever watched a sudden brownout flicker the lights on a conference call, or seen a network switch reboot in the middle of a backup window, you know the anxiety that comes with unreliable power. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon, and I'm going to walk through exactly when this unit makes sense, when it feels like overkill, and what you'll actually notice once it's plugged into your rack. First, let's talk about the type of power problem this UPS is built to solve. It's an online, double conversion system, which means the incoming AC is first turned into DC, then back into a clean sine wave before it reaches your equipment. For a lot of folks, that sounds like a buzzword parade, but the practical payoff is that any sag, spike, or brief outage is completely filtered out. I've seen it in action at a small IT firm where a nearby construction site kept tripping the building's main breaker. Their servers stayed online without a single warning because the UPS was already generating its own power. If you run equipment that can't tolerate even a millisecond of interruption, think VoIP gateways, NAS devices with write-caking, or a small virtualization host, that kind of isolation is worth the extra cost. On the flip side, the same level of protection isn't necessary for a desktop PC that you can simply restart, or a Wi-Fi router that reconnects in a few seconds. In those scenarios, you're paying for a feature set that you'll never actually leverage. That's the first group that should probably skip this model: hobbyists who only need to keep a printer or a TV running for a short grace period. The Smart 2200 VA packs 10 outlets, but half of them are on individual load banks that you can control through the LCD panel. For a single server setup, you'll end up leaving a lot of those banks idle, which isn't a problem per se, but it does mean you're buying capacity you won't use. Now, what does the value part really look like after the box is opened? The biggest practical strength is the ability to assign each outlet to its own power profile. Imagine you have a 200W switch, a 150W storage array, and a 300W UPS-backed router. With the Smart's controllable banks, you can program the switch to shut down first, then the storage, preserving data integrity, while the router stays alive longest to keep network services up. That level of granular control is something you normally only see in enterprise-grade units that cost double or triple what this one does. In everyday use, it translates to a smoother shutdown during a scheduled power test, and less manual fiddling when you need to run a firmware upgrade on a piece of gear that can't tolerate a hard power loss. Another concrete advantage is the pure sine wave output. Many cheaper line interactive UPSs output a stepped approximation of a sine wave, which can cause older power supplies or sensitive audio equipment to hum or overheat. Because the Tripp Lite is truly sine wave, you can safely plug in a high-efficiency server PSU, a small audio mixer, or even a medical-grade monitor without worrying about that subtle distortion. I've heard a technician at a clinic mention that they switched from a cheaper UPS to this model and instantly stopped seeing intermittent alarm beeps on their patient monitors. That's a real-world symptom that disappears when you upgrade to a clean wave source. There are, however, a couple of practical weaknesses that become obvious once you start using the unit day-to-day. The first is the size and weight. At 2U it fits neatly into a standard rack, but you need a rack that can support the roughly 70 pounds chassis. If you're mounting this on a wall-mounted cabinet that was originally designed for a half-height switch, you'll have to reinforce the mounting brackets or risk sagging. The second downside is the battery runtime. With a full load of about 1/800W, you get roughly 3 to 4 minutes before the battery is depleted enough for a graceful shutdown, but not enough to bridge a prolonged outage. That's not a surprise for a unit in this class, but it does mean you have to set realistic expectations. This isn't a backup generator, it's a bridge that buys you time to let software do its job. One feature that often trips people up is the optional network card. The base model comes with a serial port for basic monitoring, but you can add a network management card to pull SNMP data, set email alerts, or remotely reboot the UPS. If you're comfortable with a simple LCD readout, You can skip the extra card and still get full protection. But if you already have a monitoring platform like PRTG or SolarWinds, that network module becomes a real time saver, letting you see the load percentage, battery,